Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. And today I am back with the explanation of a wonderful story named Wuthering Heights, written by Emily Bronte. Before discussing the novel, let's delve into the author's life along with the literary age of that time. Emily Bronte was born on 30th July 1818, and it was part of the Victorian literary age. The Victorian era in literature roughly spans the reign of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1901. Emily Bronte, along with her sisters Charlotte Bronte and Anne Bronte, gained recognition for their literary works. Charlotte Bronte is renowned for Jane Eyre, and Anne Bronte is known for novels like The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. The sisters' works reflect the social, moral, and cultural concerns of the Victorian era. Now let's discuss the literary themes of the Victorian era. These are the themes which will be found in the novel. The first is social realism. Victorian literature explored social issues and depicted the realities of life, including the struggles of the working class people. The second is moral and ethical concerns. Victorian literature addressed moral and ethical dilemmas reflecting the values of the time. And the third is industrialization and urbanization. The impact of industrialization and urbanization on society was a prevalent theme, and this highlights both the positive and the negative consequences. Now, talking about the publication of the novel Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights was published in 1847 under the pseudonym Alice Bell. Now, a question arises: why Emily Bronte has used her pseudonym in order to publish the novel Wuthering Heights? The answer to this is an important aspect of the Victorian society. The Victorian age was a time marked by rigid social norms and expectations, particularly concerning the roles and behavior of women. In the Victorian society, women were denied many opportunities, and pursuing a profession or engaging in intellect pursuit was often not an option for them, and it was widely believed that women lacked the intellectual capacity of men and were better suited for nurturing roles. The Bronte sisters, through their works, offered nuanced portrayals of female characters and challenged the prevailing notions about women's roles. Again, the novel's dark and passionate themes challenged the conventions of the Victorian literature as it delved into the destructive aspects of love and revenge. Also, the novel's gothic elements, supernatural occurrences, and the exploration of intense emotions set it apart from the other literary works of that particular time. Now, let's discuss the characters of the novel. The first one is Heathcliff, a mysterious orphan with a dark past. His love for Catherine drives the whole plot, and his vengeful nature and intense emotions shape the overall story. The second one is Catherine Earnshaw. She is the conflicted heroine torn between societal expectations and her deep connection with Heathcliff. Then comes Edgar Linton. He is Catherine Earnshaw's husband. Then it's Isabella Linton, who is Edgar Linton's sister and Heathcliff's wife. And then comes Hindley Earnshaw. He is Catherine's brother who mistreats Heathcliff. All these five characters are the main characters of the first generation. It is a story of two generations, so all these characters together form the first generation. Now let's discuss the characters of the second generation. So then comes Hareton Earnshaw. He is Hindley's son and he is raised in harsh conditions by Heathcliff. Then comes Linton. He is Heathcliff and Isabella's son. Then there is young Catherine. She is Catherine Earnshaw and Edgar Linton's daughter. So these are the characters of the second generation. Now you need to understand the narrative structure of this story. You need to know that this is a story within a story, which means it employs a dual narrative structure employing the voices of two distinct narrators, who are Lockwood and Nelliden. Now this Lockwood is an outsider who rents Thrushcross Crunch, and he becomes curious about the neighboring Wuthering Heights. So Lockwood's narrative is actually the framing device, and it provides an entry point for the readers into the main plot of the story Wuthering Heights. Now Lockwood's curiosity about the history of Wuthering Heights and its inhabitants prompts him to seek information from the housekeeper Nelliden. And here comes the role of the housekeeper or the narrator Nelliden. And from here, Nelliden becomes the primary narrator, taking over from Lockwood and providing a detailed account of the characters and events. So Lockwood's role transitions into that of an observer, and he reappears intermittently to seek information from Nelliden. And Nelliden also becomes the connecting link between the past and the present. Now let's delve into the story. In the chilly winter months of 1801, a man named Lockwood decides to rent a grand manor house called Thrushcross Crunch in the remote moorlands of England. It is here that he encounters his landlord, Heathcliff, a wealthy man who resides in the ancient Wuthering Heights estate located 4 miles away from the Grange. In this wild and tempestuous countryside, Lockwood seeks out his housekeeper, Nelliden, and implores her to share with him the tale of Heathcliff and the inhabitants of Wuthering Heights. Nellie agrees to his request, and Lockwood records her recollections in his diary. These written accounts form the core narrative of Wuthering Heights. Nellie reminisces about her childhood days spent as a servant at Wuthering Heights under its owner, Mr. Earnshaw, and his family. One fateful day, Mr. Earnshaw travels to Liverpool and returns with an orphan boy whom he plans to raise alongside his own children. At first, Hindley and Catherine, Mr. Earnshaw's son and daughter respectively, harbor a strong dislike for Heathcliff. However, Catherine quickly develops an affection for him, and their bond grows unbreakable as they spend their days frolicking on the moors. After Mrs. Earnshaw's passing, Mr. Earnshaw favors Heathcliff over Hindley, causing tension between them. When Hindley continues mistreating Heathcliff relentlessly, Mr. Earnshaw sends Hindley off to college while keeping Heathcliff close by. 3 years later, tragedy strikes as Mr. Earnshaw passes away, leaving Hindley in charge of Wuthering Heights. Hindley returns with Frances, his wife, and harbors deep resentment towards Heathcliff. Heathcliff, who was once treated as a cherished son, now finds himself reduced to a mere servant, forced to work in the fields. Nonetheless, Heathcliff and Catherine maintain their close relationship. On one eventful night, they venture off to Thrushcross Crunch. Unfortunately, Catherine is bitten by a dog and is compelled to stay at the Grange for 5 weeks in order to recover. By this time, Mrs. Linton strives to transform Catherine into a refined young lady. By the time Catherine returns home, she has developed an infatuation for Edgar Linton, and her connection with Heathcliff becomes increasingly intricate. Tragedy strikes once again when Frances dies after giving birth to a baby boy named Hareton. Hindley spirals into deep alcoholism, and his mistreatment towards Heathcliff intensifies further. In due course, Catherine's longing for social advancement leads her to become engaged to Edgar Linton despite her overpowering love for Heathcliff. Heartbroken, Heathcliff flees from Wuthering Heights and remains absent for 3 years before returning shortly after Catherine's marriage to Edgar. When Heathcliff returns, his sole purpose is seeking revenge on those who have wronged him. With his newfound and enigmatic wealth, he cunningly lends money to Hindley, knowing that it would only deepen Hindley's debt and despair. Upon Hindley's demise, Heathcliff inherits the manor. Additionally, he secures the opportunity to inherit Thrushcross Grange by marrying Isabella Linton, whom he treats with utmost cruelty. As Catherine falls ill and eventually passes away after giving birth to a daughter, Heathcliff pleads for her spirit to remain on earth in any form possible as long as she doesn't leave him alone. Shortly after, Isabella flees to London and gives birth to Heathcliff's son named Linton. 13 years go by with Nellie Dent serving as the nursemaid of Catherine's daughter at Thrushcross Grange. Young Catherine possesses the beauty and strong-willed nature of her mother, but is influenced by her father's gentler side. Unaware of Wuthering Heights' existence, young Catherine stumbles upon the manor while wandering through the moors and meets Hareton, with whom she forms a bond. Following Isabella's death, Linton comes to live with Heathcliff, but is subjected to even more cruelty than his mother. 3 years later, young Catherine encounters Heathcliff on the moors and visits Wuthering Heights, where she meets Linton in secret. They embark on a clandestine romance carried out through letters until Nellie destroys young Catherine's collection of letters. Determined to be with her frail lover again, young Catherine seeks out at night despite Nellie's objections. It becomes evident that Linton pursues young Catherine under duress from Heathcliff. If she marries Linton, it would solidify his claim over Thrushcross Grange and enact revenge upon Edgar Linton. As Edgar Linton's health deteriorates, Heathcliff manipulates Nellie and young Catherine, holding them captive at Wuthering Heights until young Catherine agrees to marry Linton. Shortly after the wedding, Edgar passes away, followed swiftly by the sickly Linton. At this point, Heathcliff gains control over both Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. He forces young Catherine to live as a servant at Wuthering Heights while renting out Thrushcross Grange to Lockwood. Nellie concludes her narrative in the present timeline. Appalled by what he has learned, Lockwood terminates his tenancy at Thrushcross Grange and returns to London. However, 6 months later, he pays Nellie a visit and discovers further developments in the story. Initially mocking Hareton's lack of knowledge and illiteracy, young Catherine grows to love Hareton during their time together at Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff becomes increasingly obsessed with Catherine's memory, even going as far as speaking to her ghost and seeing reminders of her everywhere. After a night spent walking on the moors, Heathcliff eventually passes away. Hareton and young Catherine inherit both Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange with plans to marry. Upon hearing the conclusion of the tale, Lockwood visits Catherine and Heathcliff's gravesite. Heathcliff and Catherine are buried side by side, and their graves symbolize their tumultuous love and the idea of eternal union in death. So here ends the story of Wuthering Heights. Now let's discuss the probable questions. First and foremost is the theme of passionate love and revenge. Then Wuthering Heights as a Gothic novel where you have to discuss the Gothic elements. Then there is character analysis of Heathcliff and Catherine. Fourth is Wuthering Heights as a story of two generations. Fifth is portrayal of social class. Sixth is symbolism. And the last one is narrative technique. So here ends the overall discussion of Wuthering Heights written by Emily Bronte. If you think that this video has helped you in any way or the other, do like, share, comment and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.